Roll call.
Commissioner Campos?
Here.
Commissioner Butcher?
Here.
Commissioner Gandy?
Here.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Here.
And Mayor Trujillo?
Here. Commissioner Gandy, use some prayer and pledge, sir.
Yes, sir. Bear with me. Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this absolutely beautiful day. Lord, we just thank you for the spring. We thank you for the blooming flowers. We thank you for the wind. We thank you for the rain. We thank you for everything that you provide for us on a daily basis. Lord, we just thank you for this commission. We thank you for each commissioner. Lord, I just pray that you would bless them with wisdom and foresight, that they may conduct city business in a way that you would approve of. Lord, we just thank you for our staff. We thank you for the chief of police. We thank you for the chief of the fire department. We thank you for James. We thank you for Patrick. We thank you for Wyatt. And we thank you for Gary and Anna. Lord, we just thank you for all that they do for our city. Lord, I just thank you for our citizens and the many hours of effort they put into the many activities we have. Lord, I just pray that you would continue to bless each one. Lord, as we conduct the city business tonight, I pray that you would lead us and guide us to do what is right for our citizens, that would bring a blessing upon this city, financially and for just the citizens in general. Again, Lord, we thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ. We thank you for all that you do. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
I'll get better practicing.
We was at U.S. Central Bank.
Say miracles. I'm thankful for you too, David.
Let's see if I... Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Have motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Do I have another motion?
Motion to consider minutes of March 11th, 2019. Second.
Had a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to the proclamations. James, who was going to, you have somebody?
Kathy Coates. Kathy Coates.
Kathy? Read off this proclamation. Whereas the City of Lovington recognizes the need to fully understand complex health issues as our society is increasingly aware of the difficulties faced by individuals with autism and autism spectrum disorders. And whereas April is recognized nationwide as Autism Awareness Month. And whereas the Lovington Autism Center for Education and Service, PTO, has organized the 8th annual Lovington Lighted Up Blue event to raise awareness and show support for our autism community. And whereas it is important that we as a community support families and individuals as they respond to the challenges of ASD, and likewise support initiatives related to training, information, and availability of services. Now therefore, I, David A. Trujillo, Mayor of Lovington, New Mexico, do hereby proclaim April 6, 2019 as the 9th annual Lovington Lighted Up Blue Day. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner staff reports. Why?
Mayor and Commissioners, just give you an update on some of the road projects, or some of the little update. As you can see, our commercial Avenue K railroad was actually completed, I believe about a week and a half ago. Finally was able to finish that project up after about 6 months of kind of going back and forth with the railroad company. Other than that, we're still waiting on our final traffic control plan to fix Main Street, or actually Avenue D, in between Main and First. New Mexico DOT requires a permit if we work on their roadway, and they're requiring a traffic control plan stamped and by an engineer, so we're waiting on that currently. And same thing right there in front of the courthouse, they're doing the same plan so we can get those spots fixed. Other than that, that's all that I have.
Any questions about it?
Thank you for maintaining your attention to the Avenue K project, White. I know it was lengthy, but I appreciate your attention to it. Thank you.
It's a nice new spot in the center of the road. So,
And I was gonna ask on an update on our lights on Dead Man's Curve. That's what I still call it. I know a lot of people call it Erlacher Lane, but just old school.
Actually, going home for lunch today, they were actually putting some of those lights up. So we should, I don't know if they're gonna turn them on tonight. I know the delay on that, got a call from John Cartwright, and they actually, during one of the holes, they hit a private gas line. So that was unmarked, it was a privately owned line, so they actually put a little delay on that and actually had to get a hydrovac crew to come out and spot where they were gonna go to make sure they weren't gonna hit that. And right after that, we had the big windstorm, so we put them on another about a week delay, but currently today they were putting up the brand new LEDs and stringing the wire to them. So hopefully we get some lights tonight. If not, we should see it in the next couple of days.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Good. Gary?
If I may, your mayor and commission, I was pleased to have the assistance from the department, local government division of the Department of Finance working with their new reporting requirements, and that was Mr. Michael Steininger, who took my place last week, I believe, or last commission meeting. Anyway, through working with them, I've come to understand better some requirements that are required by the Department of Finance, and I know that moving forward, our reports will be in compliance 100% with what they want. I'm thankful for that. So I'm just putting that plug in. The last thing, of course, we're obviously working on the budget. We'll have that to bring to you, and I'm just not sure which meeting we'll be bringing it, but I'm sure you're probably already aware of the April 18th date that would be a special budget meeting. So that's what I have to report.
Any questions about that? Thank you. Thank you, Gary. Jalen?
Nothing to report, sir.
And
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Sanchez?
I don't have anything. I thought I remembered it.
Commissioner Bernal?
I do not. Why answer my questions there?
Another here, thank you.
Thank you. Chief?
Nothing to report, sir.
Chief?
Nothing to report, sir.
James?
Yes, sir. As Gary had mentioned, well, we'll have that budget work session here on April 18th. It's a Thursday at 5:30 p.m. In addition to that, one of the things you should have a copy of this draft flyer. Typically, we always have our Lovington or Keep Lovington Beautiful Cleanup Day in April. This year, that day is April 27th. However, to try to get people more involved in the community, pick up litter, help a neighbor out, we're doing a 1-month campaign. It starts April 1st. It'll end on the 30th, that for every 13-gallon bag of litter, not household trash, but litter you bring down to City Hall, we'll actually have a roll-off available. We'll provide that a ticket that will be entered in for some door prizes that will be drawn live on May 1st. So this is just try to get out there, clean up the community. Instead of just having it focus on one day, just try to get everybody out there to help clean up, be a little bit more proactive with that. And that is all I have.
Any questions about it?
Nothing to
Patrick?
report, sir.
Thank you. All right, moving on to public comment.
Hi, Betty Price. Well, since we got the railroad on K fixed, can we get the one on R fixed? It's got really bad potholes. That's it. Just need another railroad track fixed. Thank y'all.
Yeah, that one might require a lot more because that's heavy traffic on that south side of it. On our, yeah, I don't think just a patch would help out, it might have to require concrete on that one. Any other comments from the public? Scott? You okay? All right, moving on to action items. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to reconsider resolution 219-032, appointment to senior citizen board.
Second.
That motion is second. James?
Mayor and Commissioners, we've advertised this vacancy on the board. We have 3 individuals who submitted their interest to Norma Behill, the director over there. It's Elisha Bixby, Timothy Boydston, or Rosario Berenga. So we would need to appoint with this resolution 1 individual to finish out the term vacated by Mr. Ron Humphrey.
I'd like to make that motion, to remake that motion. Elijah Bixby to fill out the remaining term for Ron Humphrey.
You'd like to
Amend that motion, I'm sorry. Get it correct.
Like, yeah, Arthur, you'd have to make it up.
Yeah, you made the motion.
I'll rescind my motion.
I was gonna
Who
move
did you
to
want to submit to? Who was the name?
Alicia Bixby.
Elisha Bixby? Do we know Elisha Bixby?
She's right there.
She's right
Behind us.
So
Yep.
I make a motion that we consider Elisha Bixby to the senior citizen board.
Second.
Anybody second?
Arthur amended his motion. Scotty, you still got that second
What's that? Actually, Paul was in my second one.
one? Oh, yeah.
I'll second.
Had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. All right. Do I have a motion?
Sorry about that, Arthur.
I'd like to make a motion for resolution 2019-033, approval of budget adjustments for FY 2018 to 2019, BAR number 2.
Second.
Had a motion and a second by Commissioner Campos.
Well, if I may, Mayor and Commission, this is a beginning stage of bringing our budget in compliance with the local government division. So this first page shows adjustments that we have to make internally to our financial reports to have budgets that will tie out to the local government division's budget. And so on that page, you'll see all of the approved budget that had been approved by the local government division and changes that we have to make in the adjustment column to our budget so that it ties and matches to the local government division budget.
Is there any questions about it?
I've got a thick packet.
Any questions?
Are we behind on that?
Oh, no, sir.
Scotty, good. Had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to consider resolution 2019-34, approval of budget adjustments for fiscal year 2018-2019, bar number 3.
Second.
Had a motion and a second.
If I may, your Mayor and Commission, part of the issue with the budget adjustments related to the Department of Finance is that they have their own chart of accounts that they require us to report in the same format using their chart of accounts with ours. So what we have here is a situation where we see their numbers on the far left column along with ours, and we're tying out in both the Department of Finance and then the City of Lovington financial reports. This is a situation where neither one of them we could say was the master, so we've combined them together to make them both match each other. I don't know if that's probably the best way I can put it. These are accounts that we had something to say, they had something to say, we had the right idea, but they didn't connect, so Now this makes them connect.
Gary, were most of these in-code issues? Is that what they were?
It wasn't an in-code issue. The reality is that we have the freedom with our software to make combinations any way we want. So I can choose, for example, to show a police expense in the water department, and I can show a finance expense in the ambulance department. So what this is doing is the DFA says, no, we are very rigid. If you're going to have a police expense, it will only be in the general fund, and it will only be this department number, and it will be this expense code. And so what we've had to do is reconcile by changing some of the things that we've done in past practice, and then conform with what they want us to do, which has really narrowed down our freedoms on how we report expenditures.
So are we in complete compliance with what DFA is requiring of us at this point?
Once we approve these, yes, I have to submit these with a report, and then that will bring us into compliance. The only other thing that we're going to need to do the next stage, and I'll be addressing that with the next quarterly report, is dealing with transfers of money, cash balances, making sure that every fund has a positive or better cash balance per the DFA reports.
Thank you.
Any other questions by the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do I have a motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'd like the resolutions 2019-35, approval of budget adjustments for fiscal year 2018-2019, bar number 4.
Second.
And motion second. Mr. Sanchez.
So if I may, your mayor and commission, essentially what I would say here is this is related to the fact that we have a budget that we've approved, but when we were reporting it to the Department of Finance, they did not accept what combinations that we had. So in this particular case, we're saying that the Department of Finance has to fix their numbers because they have these combinations. They just didn't accept them with our first submission. So in short, we're making the Department of Finance agree to our records on this one. Of course, using their restricted chart of accounts.
Any questions by the board? Gary, with all these changes and so forth, keeping in compliance with the state and so forth, and plus our changes here at the local level, do you ever feel a need for assistance in your department?
I would be a liar if I said no. Yes, I do feel the need. This is a time-consuming task because the Department of Finance has changed just in the time since I've been here from accepting what I'll call a summary report. In other words, here's your total general fund expenses, a minor breakdown by department, here's your total general fund revenues, and they were happy with that. Now, what you're seeing here is they want the detail that we use for our departments. In other words, what are your salary expenses? What are your supply expenses? What are your maintenance costs? What is your electric bill expense? And did you budget enough for all those things? And we're at a point now to where, let's say, for example, and this has been a past practice of mine, I've told departments that you have a budget of, say, $200,000. I don't really care which line item you charge that expense to, just don't go over your $200,000. Now we're in a situation where it doesn't matter what their total department budget is. What matters is, did they put enough in their supply budget to cover all the supply expenses? Did we put enough in maintenance to cover all maintenance? And maintenance is one that always catches us off guard. So I will be coming in with a lot of budget adjustments because there are always unexpected expenses, and we have to show line item by line item that we're in compliance. So it is a detailed requirement that we now have that was not required previously.
So the current process is that the management team feeds you these numbers and you evaluate them and you put them where they're supposed to be. Is that pretty much sums it up? So you're pretty much working by yourself and off the numbers that they feed you. Is that what I understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Thank you, Gary. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Gary, say you budgeted 200,000, say for whichever department, and they only used 150,000. So you got 50,000 left. Does that go to the general fund, or where does that go?
That's an excellent question. Essentially, the best way I use to describe that type of thing, and I'll use the general fund as an example, is I always use the example of we have that big bucket, that rain barrel that caught all the water, and that's all the revenues that we get for the general fund. And then we allocate pieces of that, like a big pie, and slices of it to all the different departments. And I've been blessed with working at this city where most of the departments are conscious and will not overspend their budgets. So we will, as a rule, end up the fiscal year with money that's unspent, which simply means that that water that filled the bucket has got to stay there. We didn't use it all. And that's an illustration that I use, and I hope it's understandable.
Well, will that make the finance department happy?
Oh, it will. You've got it. But there are always situations where, for example, the general fund is the main revenue source that the city has, and it's the main source of income we have that can be spent anywhere. So if we get in a situation where, for example, the ambulance fund, if they are not collecting enough, the general fund has to pay for ambulance expenses. That's just an example. But any other fund, that's how it works. The general fund covers any losses that the other funds might have.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Quick questions. Gary, I'm just going to ask you this because I've been where you're at. So I know you're the end user as far as the figures are concerned, and you insert those figures where you deem that they are correct. My question is this, and I know because I've been there. Do we have a mechanism in place to ensure that those figures where you enter them are correct? Or is that just caught at the end when we come across the audit and we answer and present our figures at that point? Is there a mechanism in place to ensure that you're entering the figures correctly?
No, I'm glad that you asked that question, because for good audit practice, I should always have somebody that backs me up and double checks my work. Right now, we're in a learning curve. I have staff members that really don't understand the reasons we make some adjustments or entries that we make, and there's a time factor there. While I can tell them this is what I'm doing, it doesn't mean that they understand it. So I'm in a situation where, yes, I am kind of standalone, but I do my best to double check my own work and hopefully educate them in such a way that they will be able to identify things that do need to be fixed or corrected. But again, it's not a situation where I could just hand this to somebody and say, yes, just do that, take care of it.
And I know you're doing good work, Gary. I'm just kind of asking about the system itself, what the functionality of it is. So thank you for your work, though. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So I do have people that double check my work, but it is exactly as I said. It's an educational process. There's more that everybody needs to learn.
I understand.
And Gary, that's one thing we'd like to do is provide you with the tools necessary to make sure it's done right. So,
thank you.
You know, I think the board has done that numerous times, and we want to continue to do so. And that way it makes us feel comfortable. The community feels comfortable about it. But it's very important for us, as you well know.
Well, I appreciate that. To be honest with you, when Mr. Steininger came here, he has several pages of things where he says, Gary, how come you didn't catch that? Gary, why didn't you catch that? Gary, why didn't you fix that? And that's why we're here now.
No. Thank you, Gary. Any other questions about the board? Have a motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do I have another motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, resolution 2019-36, awarding the bid for the construction of Lovington CBD sidewalk, street, and drainage improvements.
Had a motion and second, James.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is a project that we started back in 2016, and hopefully it will actually come to fruition here shortly. We finally were allowed to release the bids for the CDBG sidewalk, drainage, and roadway improvements, and this project will actually work to fix Jefferson Street between 13th and 17th, 2nd Street from Jackson to Avenue D, and then Avenue H from 2nd to 5th Street. This project, of course, had to go through several reviews with New Mexico Department of Finance, Local Government Division, who administers the federal program. Project did come in as staff and our engineering firm concluded was going to come in way over the initial construction budget, which the construction budget was originally $478,000 according to engineer estimates. However, after the various reviews, we were able to plug in some real numbers based on today's market prices. DFA gave us the direction to go ahead and proceed with the bid as is, and if it came in over budget, we would deal with it then. The low bid on this, or lowest qualifying bid, was from Constructors Inc. For a total of $609,348, which is $131,000 over budget. What we are allowed to do with this federal program is reduce a 10%, up to a 10% reduction in the scope of work, and what that means is we will take out a certain amount, up to about $60,000 worth of sidewalk improvements, because we want to focus on the roadway repairs. DFA on Friday morning, we had a conference call with them, and they did agree to go ahead and allow us to proceed with this reduction. So what this resolution will do is allow us to award the bid to Constructors Inc. contingent upon the 10% reduction in the scope of work and, of course, the dollar amount associated with that work. We would also, at our next City Commission meeting, would need to approve a budget amendment with the Department of Finance or the CDBG program, as well as a time extension to extend the project out to December for final completion, December of 2020. The reason why it's that long is with this particular project, once it's done, you have to have public hearings. There's a lot of publication requirements and hearing requirements. But this would allow us to hopefully have our pre-construction meeting before the end of April and get started. Construction time on this project was 105 days to do all 3 roadways with all of those improvements. And we don't recommend going back out to bid for 2 reasons. The primary reason is, 1, it would delay the project even further. 2, we won't see a reduction in the price. And 3, it would put us well past and into the beginning of the monsoon season if we delay construction much longer. So it's our recommendation to award the resolution as submitted.
Any questions, Bob?
As long as we hold Constructors Inc. to the fire, they're pretty sorry, in my opinion. That's just coming from me, but they're gonna have to get with the program. That's about all I got to say on that.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, Bob? Comments? Had a motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to consider resolution 2019-37, fiscal year 2019 fourth quarter lodgers tax funding.
Second.
Had a motion and second, James.
Mayor and Commissioners, our Lodgers Tax Board did meet earlier in the month and have submitted the recommendations for funding for the different events in this fourth quarter. This is our most event-heavy quarter, and the strategy that we utilize this year with setting the budgets for the lighter quarters have resulted in unexpected revenue from lodgers tax. As you can see, for the first time, we were actually able to help with the Lee County Fair and Rodeo as far as sponsoring part of their concert series that they have. I know that this is good that we're able to provide this kind of support. Just for instance, off the top of my head, I know for Lee County Fair and Rodeo, directly from GRT and lodger's tax, just from the hotel stays from one hotel in Lovington during that 8 days, the city directly received back about $5,000 in lodger's tax. So these events do have an impact. We're actually seeing a lot of good data from them, and our hotels are being utilized. So we would recommend that we award these as presented.
Any questions by the board?
James, are we seeing an increase percentage-wise to these projects compared to last year? Say
Increase in the attendance or
no,
funding-wise?
Yes.
We are actually this quarter we've supplied a lot more funding for these projects. Of course, we have a lot more lodger's tax funding available. I believe that the initial budget for revenues this year, when we calculated those back last April, made our projections, we only calculated about $114,000 in revenue. But the estimated revenue that we're expecting to receive for the entire fiscal year as of June 30th is going to be about almost $168,000. So we've been able to do a lot more, provide some additional sponsorship and support for these events to draw people into Lovington.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions? Had a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for resolution 2019-038, authorizing the advertisement of the ordinance that creates Title 17 zoning, Chapter 17.34, E, Economic District of Lovington Municipal Code.
Had a motion and a second. James?
As you recall, or hopefully you do recall, about 6 months ago we had a discussion with the City Commission to address the development of the downtown areas, not just on Main Street but also Avenue D. We were given direction to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission and create an ordinance to address several different things, such as uses that really don't conform to our comprehensive plan, and also future growth of the downtown areas. We did bring this back, a draft, to the City Commission a couple months ago, brought it back to our Planning and Zoning Board, and they finally provided a recommendation, the draft ordinance that you have in your Novus agenda at this point. What we are requesting tonight is permission to begin the advertisement process. As this is a change in zoning and creating a new zoning district, we do have certain advertising requirements that we have to have, but I would like to walk everyone through the general direction that this ordinance would do. So our economic zone, the purpose essentially is to preserve and protect and enhance our areas, any of the structures and sites that are used for commercial purposes that generate gross receipts tax revenue for the city of Lovington. This area would actually be composed of Avenue D from 17th Street all the way out to Commercial Street, and then going from north to south, beginning at Avenue R and ending in the area where Love Street intersects with Commercial. It would be bordered by the alleys, or if there isn't an alley, if there were an alley, the language is actually located within that document. In addition, so we want to preserve, protect, and enhance. We also want to address the vacant, or what they are classified as per the definitions, an urban nuisance, something as unsightly and detracts from the appearance of the city. It's also hopefully going to increase municipal revenues by having individuals meet certain maintenance criteria and requirements to spruce up their buildings. At the same time, that would make it more attractive for a potential buyer or somebody who wants to lease a location to come in. It looks a lot more move-in ready. Urban nuisance was one of the motivating factors behind this, and it's any structure property, building, site, or incidental appurtenance which is not properly maintained. And in section 17.34.120, it actually identifies these maintenance requirements, and we'll cover these briefly. But also any type of building condition that we have that leads to or lends to any type of damage, whether it's weather, whether it's graffiti, anything that could jeopardize public health and safety or lead to infestations or other maintenance. That is what your urban nuisance would fall under. As far as permitted uses within the district, it would be any municipal owned operated parks and playgrounds. We also have the offices, buildings, facilities, churches, multiple dwelling. We also, with the multiple dwelling, we have certain square footage requirements, and these are based on affordable housing minimums that you have. Any professional offices, hospitals, clinics, hotels, motels, or retail business that generates revenue for the city of Lovington. Prohibited uses, we would have any of the prohibited uses currently listed in zone A, B, or C. RV and mobile home parks would not be permitted within that district. Single family dwellings, mobile homes, a truck parking lot, or buildings repurposed for storage. I know one of the discussions that we had previously had about this change or creation of the new zoning district or a change in zoning is that this is a long-term solution. Properties that are currently being utilized for something that is prohibited per this ordinance would still be allowable until the property changes ownership. You can't force this new zoning. So it's going to prevent future problems, but also encourage development and through other means with economic development and our Chamber of Commerce and Main Street organizations to encourage people to develop this area. We also have parking of certain vehicles. Essentially anything 15,000 pounds or more cannot park in the streets, the alleys, public right-of-ways, or upon that property, except for delivery vehicles that are used for the goods and services that originate at the site, customer vehicles being stored at the site of a mechanic shop or garage, or for loading and unloading purposes. So you would not necessarily be able to just park a large tractor trailer rig in that downtown district. We also have any of the new commercial buildings that may go up. They have to make sure that they conform for one parking space for every 800 square feet. This is currently in the Zone C zoning requirements. But if you do have this second bullet point, 2 or more establishments, they can actually share a parking space. So if you have 2 buildings that are located within 300 feet of this shared parking lot, they can actually count that as their parking. And then of course they have to ensure that they are compliant with the ADA standards. We have height and certain setback requirements will allow a building 7 stories or 70 feet in height. And then of course the setback requirements. Zone C fits this definition because unless it does abut a residential district, it's essentially a 0 lot line, meaning there aren't setback requirements for the most part. We also have these maintenance requirements, which are specified in detail in the ordinance, but you know, it's got to be safe and attractive. 10% of exterior deterioration is allowed. So if they have peeling paint, you know, 100 square foot area, and they've got 10 square foot of that, that would be allowable. But you get to that 11, then of course, you know, you've got some issues you need to identify. But we also have a means for them to take care of trash, litter, any type of refuse, natural or man-made. Has to be graffiti free. However, considering the efforts in the downtown area to put murals, we wanted to make sure that murals that are approved are allowable. You do have to make sure you maintain any landscape. It's not setting landscape requirements, but if you do landscape the area, it does have to be maintained. Windows and doors, you simply can't board them up. That is boarding up, whether it's wood or tin, that is a temporary repair, but the windows do have to be fixed, as well as doors. We also have awning maintenance requirements, and the roofs also have to be maintained. This flows into the security requirements. Essentially, if your building is not occupied, you have to make sure that it is secure. We also have a means for abatement where the city, if the property owner fails to abide by the maintenance requirements, the city has the ability to abate the nuisance, file a lien, and also collect on that lien later. And then we do have penalties, which it's a maximum of penalty of up to $500 per day for the violation while it remains in place. Since this is a zoning change, a proposed zoning change, what this resolution tonight will do is it will allow for the advertisement of our intent to adopt the ordinance. We have flyers. Since this is that change in zoning, we have to notify everybody of the change in zoning. So we actually have documents, which a very brief one-page summary of this that will be mailed to every property owner within the city. It is in English and Spanish, but we'll actually have specific public comment periods at the April 8th meeting or April 22nd meeting if it's approved tonight. And then the final vote for adoption of this ordinance would be held on May 13th. And I would stand for any questions the commission may have.
So you're saying, as of now, we're gonna have public hearings for those businesses that it affects or whatever?
Any member, yes, sir. Mayor and Commissioners, any member of the public can feel free, instead of just having it under public comment, we'll just list a specified public comment period under our non-action items to address this specific ordinance.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people, they'll get that in the mail and they'll just kind of like
Correct.
throw it to the side. And
Correct. But we will be advertising this as required in our newspaper. We'll also have the draft ordinance or the proposed ordinance available on our website, or copies are available down here for people to come in and review it as well. Our staff will be available for questions too.
James,
Sir.
Going back to structures, on Avenue D, all the housing that we have, like, what is that, on 6th Street or something like that, that one right there on that corner, them 3 houses right there, there's probably about 7 houses on Avenue D.
There are 13 houses on Avenue D, single-family dwellings, and I
how would they-
believe 7 on Main Street.
How would they be affected?
Well, that is, until that property transfers ownership, the current use would still be allowable.
Just like businesses.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, because that's the only thing that worries me. I wonder, the ones on, what is it, right by the old Circle K? Them
Mhm.
3 houses right there, they've been there for a while, and I don't know if they're gonna want their children to take over their homes afterwards, and that's where I'm kind of
Mhm.
at a point to where if possibly they can be exempt in some areas of that, you know, because they are structures. Either they're gonna have to make it into an office, that'd be the only other thing they could make it into after they sell it. It'd have to be sold as commercial property, and the home would have to be transferred into an office. And that's the only thing I'm concerned about on that. I don't know how we can address or make them properties exempt or some sort of clause in there stating that they keep it under the family members or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing that. Patrick, I don't know how we could, that'd be the only, my concern, because I'd hate to take somebody's home away, especially if they've been there for years, and they want to sell it to retire, and then also they trying to sell it as commercial property and can't find a buyer because it's now commercial and can't be made into a home. That's my feelings on that part.
I guess we can take a look at it. You know, it would be hard to distinguish between family member and then come up with a definition of who fits that family member. And if you just say by inheritance, you could bequeath that to your son, your daughter, your mom or dad or brother, or your best friend. You know, so there's a lot of different things we need to take into consideration. And then to go back and take a look at with some of those parcels auctioned out, is that going to be able to get us where we need to be as far as the overall picture and the overall plan of that ordinance? So it may be something that we take a hard look at and see, you know, I mean, if there's certain things you want to address, do we go about addressing them in a different way? It does present a problem. We talked about that in planning and zoning. You know, one of the things we took into consideration is someone's interest in purchasing in that type of area and what the risks and it may not be fair, but it's certainly something we have to take a look at and see what's best for the town, as well as, you know, somebody that owns a residential structure and has had that there for a number of years, so it's not an easy fix, but we can certainly look at it.
Just something I think we need to address. Also, on the, is this process, when they ask for a variance, is it gonna go through the same process as any other ordinance, or if they ask for a variance, is what I'm saying, would it go through planning and zoning, and we get the final say if someone wanted to request a variance, would that go through the final, would we still have the final say on it?
Yes, sir.
As board members? The only reason I address that is because the businesses, they do contribute to our community, and that us as a board, I think we need to have the final say in case it does affect their business, and then we can answer to them instead of your staff have answered to my rather the board has. I mean, that's my preference. I don't know how your preference is. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? But all this will be talked about during this.
Correct, sir. We still have another month, or roughly a month and a half,
Okay.
before this would even come for final consideration.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll just advertise at this point.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Approving the advertising.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other questions? Had a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we consider accounts payable.
Second.
Had a motion second. Gary?
Your mayor and commission, this is a short list comparatively, but just sticking with consistency, there are only 4 items that are over $5,000. I'll go through those quickly. The first one is, third way down the list for Dana Nepper Company, the $10,295. We purchased several 2-inch meters for the water department there. And then just below that, you see the Elliott and Waldron abstract for $75,587. That was the purchase of some property for the memorial veterans. And then going down to the $11,907, that's Candy Cane water well service. They had to pull a pump and bail well number 18, which I don't fully understand what they did, but they worked on well number 18 and pulled a pump. And then, of course, the $53,784 is just a standard electrical bill for the city. I'm available for any other questions if you have any.
The wellness center, $3,400.
I'm sorry, which one?
The wellness center.
Oh, the wellness center? The city is working with the new wellness center that's been made, and the city is deducting the money from the employees and then making the payments to the wellness center for our monthly membership. And that is a 1-month fee for the employees.
Speaking on that, Mr. Mayor, if I can, James, there were still some issues regarding, I guess, member fees being paid. I know it wasn't on our end, but I think that's in their system. Any update on that by chance?
I was under the impression the problem had already been fixed.
It hasn't. Like last week, sometime this morning.
Okay.
Was it you?
So this morning too.
Okay.
I will call Mitch tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
The Sunbelt pools, is that for the swimming pool here?
As a matter of fact, let me double check. Yes, the Sunbelt pools, we needed to get a pump and some impellers for a pump for our swimming pool to get it ready for the swimming season.
So we'll be needing some fence repair on that one too with that wind. I saw that the other day.
Yeah, we're getting quotes.
Yeah. Any other questions by the board?
Yes, sir.
Negative.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to section 10-15-1, New Mexico State Annotated 1978, subsection 8.8 regarding the purchase, acquisition, or disposition of real property or water rights, and/or potential purchase of real property and water rights.
Second.
Remote second, roll call.
Commissioner Gandy,
Aye.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Aye.
Commissioner Butcher,
Aye.
Commissioner Campos,
Aye.
and Mayor Trujillo.
Aye. We are in closed session.
Thank you very much. motion to go back into regular session to include the matters discussed in the closed session were limited only to those specified in the motion for closure and that no action was taken.
Second.
Had a motion second. Anna, roll call.
Commissioner Butcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Aye.
Commissioner Campos?
Aye.
Commissioner Gandy?
Aye.
And Mayor Trujillo?
Aye.